another escape tower back here for getting out. So two escape compartments, which is still today a normal thing for any submarine, to have two different areas to escape from, in case the submarine's stuck on the bottom. Below us right now is the gland space, so where the shafts, propeller shafts actually go out through the pressure hull. What else? Tuck it around the corner. The CO2 absorption unit, so that's the machine, like I said, that'll scrub the carbon dioxide out of the air. Be another stack of bunks here. One guy sleeping there. One little sink back here. Engineering stores, so all the spare parts for the engineering department would be kept down there. And then the rest of the space. This area went through 3 or 4 different configurations. This was probably the best one just before we decommissioned. There were bunks set all up here at sea, but once we got alongside, we could lower everything, and then we had a nice locker up here. We could flip this over and store everything up there. It was actually pretty good.
And all our stickers are on this half here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Someone took it because it was here
Yeah.
a couple of months or before I left Mach 5 when I was down here flying around. Yeah, all of our stickers on top of that.
These nozzles I've seen.
Emergency breathing system.
Oh yes, okay.
On the Victoria class, they're everywhere. They go throughout the whole boat. On the Oberons, they were in, actually this is for escape, but on the Oberon, the emergency breathing system was in the engine room and the control room. That was it. Back here and in the forward torpedo room, this is that escape air, the built-in breathing system that were only, those tanks. So you would pierce a little diaphragm and let that air in those tanks charge this rail through a reducer. Then you can come in here and use little regulators and plug in, and as this compartment's filling up with water, I can stand here and breathe and wait for my next turn to go up through the...
attached to each of those nozzles
Yep.
with a regulator.
Well, there's more connections than there are people. But there could be 70, there could have been 75 people back here, standing in line with this compartment filling up with water, with an escape suit on or not, all lined up to that escape tower, that escape hatch. It's in that little area there, waiting for their turn to go. It's insane.
Yeah.
Doing it. Like most places, you wouldn't even have an opportunity to do it.
Exactly.
Most places we operate, the water's just too deep. This thing's just gonna get real hot for about a millisecond, and then you're gonna be vaporized. So it's kind of irrelevant. If you come back here, you can actually see where the torpedo tubes were. So they were actually blanked off.
Yeah.
We used to use them as lockers, so we actually used to take the covers off and fill them full of stuff. Yep, those used to be the rear torpedo tubes. Eventually, safety got involved along the way, and they said no, they got to be properly bolted and sealed because they couldn't verify that the outer doors were always going to stay shut. They might leak, so we ended up locking them shut and then putting drain valves on there to check to see if it was leaking. The snorting methods. Yeah. The way to manage water or air coming in and out of the boat, ways to manage trim. A lot of it was taken from the Germans post-World War II when they took the German boats and said, all right, what are they doing that we're not doing?
And the Dutch invented the snorkel, and the Germans got it from the Dutch.
Yeah, but the Germans took it and just went sexy with it.
Yeah.
Made it theirs, right?
Yeah.
Now we're in the motor room. So the two electricians that were on watch, you'd have a first motor room guy, a more senior guy, and then a junior guy, the second motor room guy. So that Fisher-Price Activity Center, when he would say half ahead, that would show up back here, and then they would have to manually adjust the field in the main motors, to get the speed that we want the propellers to do. Plus, they controlled the motor generators on board, which took the DC power and converted it to AC power. Read a lot of books. What else did you do back here, Sid?
Well, we were pretty much the heartbeat of the boat.
Smoked a lot of cigarettes.
Heartbeat of the boat, but they weren't in charge.
Laughing
We
at the
were.
stokers in the engine room, sweating their asses off.
Yeah, because it's fairly cool back here, but in there it's loud. When you're running the engine, then it's hot.
Yeah, we each had our own spot cooler in here for the first.
Yeah, so they got nice air conditioning blowing on the back here because they don't have the same toughness that the engineers had. The stokers.
We got our grade 12s.
Now you're good enough to blow.
So underneath us are all those motor generators, the two main motors. So these boats had 2 shafts, 2 propellers. The new ones only have 1. Cooling lines, and once again it's like a half deck. So So just the one deck basically on board the boat, whereas the Victoria class have 2 full decks and then some half deck stuff. So the first time I went on Victoria class, I was just used to one level. I lost right away because. So the guy in charge, you had his platform watchkeeper, so his second in charge, and then you had 2 centersmen, your junior guys, which were your runners to go open and shut all the valves. You got, yeah, only on this boat. The other boats all had 3. So this, it was actually great as a junior guy to get posted here, because you had a winger to work with you. On the other boats, you were all by yourself. You were getting used and abused. The guy sitting here, his second in charge, the orders would come from the control room to move some water on or off the boat to get it lighter or heavier. The orders would come here. He would open up all the valves, run the big starter box behind you, and run the pump.
So there's no voice pipes though, is there? Or-
Yeah.
Oh, there is, okay, so that's how, okay.
It's actually a better system than what we have now. But you don't like to use it, so you get a signal there. It would say pump from forward.
Yeah.
And you get here over here and say 150 gallons ballast pump. And you say 150 gallons ballast pump, Roger. You just match the telegraph and you do it, and then you would switch it off. You don't want to be talking too much,
Yeah.
so a lot of telegraph stuff.
Why don't you want to be talking?
Just more noise. Noise kills. It's a big thing. Like if someone opens, like that's on board the boat, like I would never lift this hatch up. I would never lift this up if it even moved. But I wouldn't just go slam that shut or that. That locker itself, I have a story with that. We used to keep wrenches and stuff under that little locker under Jay, and we had a new Frenchman on board, Eric. He didn't speak English too well, brand new guy, and he was in that locker, and he was rummaging through there looking for stuff, and we were actually being hunted by aircraft at the time. And he dropped, the captain was standing there and he watched him, he dropped a wrench, clink, right into the locker, and the captain came back, and he was real mad, he says, "Why don't you do it again?" So he didn't really understand English too well, so he picked up the wrench, looked at the captain, and dropped it again. The captain lost his mind and went back to the control room. But we would never shut anything loud, like we always lower hatches. We're very noise conscious on board, because that's how they hear us, that's how they find us. And it's the only way they're gonna find us. A diesel submarine is a hole in the water. A nuclear submarine cannot shut down her cooling pumps. So there's always machinery running, always making noise. So we can almost always find them. Whereas us, we can turn everything off and just become a hole. We can shut every piece of machinery off.
Sit on the bottom anything.
Yeah, just hang around. Yeah. So the technology is not as modern or as sexy as nuclear, but it's more effective in a way. Of course, we do have to run our engines every now and then. But usually by the time, if we time it right, by the time we do that, we just sound like a fishing boat going off in the distance, right? It's hard to tell. Your 2 engines hooked up to the 2 generators, and then they charge the battery.
So there would be clowns here.
Oh yeah, you've got headsets on. We actually had our own little communication network in here. So the guy in charge back there, I'd have a headset on that I could hear him, and he'd say, "What's the temperature of the supercharger?" And if it was 160, I would go 1, 6, 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then everything sideways would be 6, 7, 8, 9. We had our own communication system back here. So we couldn't talk to him. We had to use hand signals, but he could talk to us. The engine room hatch, with that well you see from the from up top. This is where the chief made me stand, and then the hatch burp. I got flooded full of water. Full ahead or half ahead, full ahead. You know, set revolution. So they do. It's like the little thing I have for my 3-year-old in his crib, right? All those dials and switches. And
Well, we just set off a bell back aft for the electricians to move the.
to do it. So they're not actually doing anything. It's just a telegraph.
And they screw up all the time,
You
right?
know, full of lights and bells and whistles and lots of switches to play with, but it doesn't do anything. It doesn't actually do anything. Unlike now, when the guy I'm sitting there, he switches half ahead, he's doing it. It's a electrical signal goes from there to the propulsion switchboard and it's happening. The guy here, he can do whatever he wants. If the guys back there don't want to do it, it never happened.
And that did happen.
So it's an activity center. You could sit here all day and play with all these switches and nothing on board the boat would change unless the people that you were sending the signal to got up off their butt and said, okay. So that's the activity center.